Who is the best tight end in the NFL today? Today, I will rank the top 20 tight ends in the NFL from 20 to 1. Make sure to like this video and subscribe for more NFL content. And without further ado, let's get right into the ranking. Kicking off the top 20 at number 20, I have Logan Thomas. Now, Logan Thomas was pretty unanimously actually considered a top 20 to even top 15 guy at the tight end position just last season, but injuries sidelined him for most of the 2021 season, which is why I think people have fell on him a little bit, and I fell on him a little bit. But he's, I think, 6'6", 240. He's absolutely huge and tall and massive. He can make all sorts of catches over the middle of the field and has been really a safety valve when he's been on the field for the Washington quarterback, whoever that's been. That be Heineke or even Alex Smith when he was in there last season, Haskins, whoever it's been. Thomas has been one of the go-to guys in that offense. He's decent after the catch, too, for someone that big. The only thing with him is he's just not overly fast. It's more forcing missed tackles, and he's not great as a blocker, so that hurts him as well. But Logan Thomas, I think, certainly has done enough in the last 2 years when he's been on the field to be considered a top 20 tight end. At number 19, I have the new New York Jets tight end, Tyler Conklin, formerly a Minnesota Viking. Conklin was the third and at times even second receiving option in the Vikings passing game to Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen when he was on the field. And he fit in well in that role. He had over 60 catches. And the thing with him is his speed and his athleticism after the catch really showed for me last year. He ranked in the top 10 in yards after catch yards last season at the tight end position. There's not a ton with him. He's also, I think, a decent blocker. But Conklin is just a player that had a pretty good season, and I definitely think warranted a top 20 place. I'm excited to see what he can do with my number 18 tight end this season as a duo with the New York Jets. Conklin's partner in crime this season will be my number 18 tight end. That is CJ Uzomah, who is also a new signing for the New York Jets. CJ Uzomah really impressed me with some of the athleticism he showed last season. He made a lot of big catches in important spots. He's really physical, and he's also pretty good after the catch, just like his partner Conklin is. He made a lot of big catches in big moments last season, and again, served as a good complement to all of the receiving talent the Bengals have. So Uzomah certainly, I think, has a player that has, I would say, improved year by year during his NFL career and has now become a top 20 player at this position. At number 17, I have Kmet of the Chicago Bears. Kmet surprised me statistically with how good he actually was. He had 60 catches and 612 yards last year. One of the more productive tight ends in football, and looking back on it, it should have been more expected because he was probably the third option for Justin Fields last season, and he'll enter this year as the second option for him. He ranked highly in most of the advanced stuff as well, within the top 20 in missed tackles forced, yards after catch, first downs, and average depth of target. He is very good in the underneath, middle of the field, intermediate areas, and I think was part of Fields' development in those areas last season that I visually saw from him from college. He's a player that I do think will improve in the touchdown department just because of how big he is. I think he'll be more prominently used in the red zone. And overall, expect Kmet to have probably a better year this year as the number 2 option and maybe even crack the top 15 by next season. At number 16, I have David Njoku of the Cleveland Browns. David Njoku is a player who I have liked for a while, even though statistically he hasn't been the best. And that's because I think David Njoku is so physically gifted. He is, I think, 6'4", 250. He's that big. He can catch the ball over the middle, force tackles, break tackles, run for after-catch yardage, and create plays that way. He happens to play in a run-first offense, which limits his target share, but when he is given the ball, he's mostly effective with it. He also had his best season last year as a blocker, which I do give him extra points for. So David Njoku is a player who don't sleep on because of his stats. He's a very talented player, and if you watch him, you'd know that. At number 15, I have Zach Ertz of the Arizona Cardinals. Zach Ertz is no longer quite at his peak. That spanned from about 2017 to 2019, I'd say, where he was probably the third best tight end in football behind Gronk and Kelce in that stretch. But he's had a really resurgent end of the season last year with the Arizona Cardinals. In Arizona last season, I believe he had 3 touchdowns, and he only had 2 with Philadelphia to start the year. He also performed better from a yards and reception standpoint. So Ertz had definitely improved when he went to Arizona. He is not the fast guy anymore. He is not the guy that is going to simply beat you with his athleticism and his speed. He's going to beat you with his intelligence and his savviness and his, I would say, just, intermediate to short play, with those underneath routes and those inside routes and stuff like that. And that's what he was effective at with Arizona. So you've got to give him credit. He certainly proved me wrong. I thought he was completely done after 2020, but I don't think he's quite at his peak anymore. At number 14, I have Pat Freiermuth. Pat Freiermuth really impressed me last season when it came to his intelligence, a lot like Zach Ertz, in that he was able to find zones over the middle. He was able to find holes in coverage, and he was able to take advantage of that. He was great with jump balls and contested catch situations in the red zone especially. He made a lot of big plays in important moments for his team to help them get into the playoffs, I thought, and really gave their offense a little bit of a spark in some games. The thing that hurts him a bit for me, he's not very good as a separator and as a route runner. He's basically solely a contested guy, or he was last season. He needs to improve, I think, his route running and his release off the line, and overall just getting open more for his quarterback. But if he can do that, he can certainly move into the top 10, in my opinion. At number 13, I have Tyler Higbee of the Super Bowl champion Los Angeles Rams. Tyler Higbee, to me, is the younger version of Zach Ertz at this point. Really good short intermediate route runner, pretty good at creating separation in that way, a savvy, smart, intelligent tight end who has improved as a blocker and is a pretty good route runner and has, I think, more than Zach Ertz at this point physically, but he's not necessarily going to wow you with downfield speed. So at number 13, I have Tyler Higbee, a player that I do think the Rams did miss in the Super Bowl last season at times. At number 12, I have Noah Fant, a player that was included in the Denver package for Russell Wilson, and is someone that I wish would have stayed in Denver because Noah Fant's never really had good quarterback play, and I think that's the only reason he hasn't hit his full potential yet. I think Noah Fant is big enough to have success in the NFL, has had relative degrees of success in the NFL, and has certainly the route running and speed, which is among the best in the league for a tight end, to his game. He's not the greatest blocker, but I do think he's improved a bit there. Fant has everything athletically. The only thing he needs at this point is to develop a rapport with the quarterback. He has a little with Drew Lock, which will help him in Seattle. So I'm not completely sure where his career is going from here, but he is certainly an excellent football player and is a top 12 tight end in the NFL today. At number 11, a guy who really kind of broke out last season and is going a little under the radar, I think, right now. And it's weird because he plays for a contender. It's Dawson Knox of the Buffalo Bills. Dawson Knox had over 500 yards, had 9 touchdowns last year, was one of the best tight ends in terms of that stat, was top 10 in missed tackles forced, and was top 12 in first downs. He had a really strong statistical season, and I don't hear many people talking about him as one of the better tight ends in the league. He was a player that was frustrating his first few years in the league because you saw he had talent, but he couldn't put it all together athletically. He was doing enough in smaller areas, but last year he really kind of popped off when I watched back, and he's a player that I think has developed a rapport with Josh Allen in the red zone specifically and has made Buffalo a pretty strong red zone team. I do think he also established himself as kind of the second option in that pass game, and I'm only expecting him with all of his athletic gifts to get better moving forward. So at number 11 and climbing is Dawson Knox. At number 10, I have Mike Gesicki of the Miami Dolphins. Mike Gesicki is a player that is one of the more well-balanced receiving tight ends in the NFL. He is a very good route runner, especially at the top of his route. He's pretty good in the short intermediate areas, but he's also very physical and good at winning contested balls. And in the offense that Miami runs, he's proven over multiple seasons to be a very effective pass catcher. So I think Mike Gesicki is a player that, he's not a great blocker, so I think that diminishes his receiving value a little bit because he isn't the full package, but overall still has been and remains one of the best tight ends in the NFL. At number 9, I have Hunter Henry of the New England Patriots. Hunter Henry is a player that was certainly, I think, New England's best offensive weapon last season, him or Damian Harris, but certainly as in the receiving game, I thought it was all Henry last season. He was great, really within the 20s, within 20 yards at least. He was very good in the short ranges, as he's always been. He was going back to his days with the Chargers, but I really was impressed with him between 15 and 20 yards as kind of that semi-vertical player. I think he has a deceptive amount of speed. He's not the greatest blocker, but he is capable enough, and I think he improved a little bit there last season. He also, to me, overall, is one of the best receivers at the tight end position and has been for years. He's a great route runner at the position. So coming in at number 9, I have Hunter Henry. At number 8, I have one of the surprising stories of last season at the tight end position, and that was just how good Dalton Schultz was. He comes in for me at number 8. Dalton Schultz had 78 catches, 808 yards, and 8 touchdowns, all of which were among the best in the league. He was top 5 in missed tackles forced, I don't know where I went there, and first downs. He was top 7 in yards after catch. He was really productive. He was probably the most consistent offensive player. Well, Zach Martin, but he was probably the most consistent offensive weapon on the Dallas Cowboys last season. And he was one of Dak Prescott's, if not his most trusted target in the pass game. He's a player that doesn't excel necessarily at a ton. I think he's a very good short intermediate route runner with very good hands and overall a very consistent player, but not overly dominant. He doesn't have a ton of huge games, but he has a lot of very good games. He's also a good blocker, not an elite one. There's not a ton of flaws to his game other than, his overall speed, but Dalton Schultz, man, just straight up is just one of the best tight ends in the league. At number 7, I have TJ Hockenson of the Detroit Lions. Production-wise, TJ Hockenson doesn't even crack the top 7 last season. His production kind of disappointed me. But I think TJ Hockenson was hurt by the fact that his offense was really ran completely just through him, and Goff always looked for that seam to Hockenson because that's all he can see on the field. And once teams started to figure that out, his production fell off. He actually started the year pretty strong and slowly but surely tailed off. TJ Hockenson, though, he possesses the route running, he possesses the size, he possesses the strength to provide issues and mismatches towards defenses. And you saw in 2020 that really occur. I expect a bounce back here from Hockenson in what I expect to be an improved Lions offense this season. So coming in at number 7 is TJ Hockenson. At number 6, I have Dallas Goedert. Dallas Goedert, to me, is the elite tight end in the NFL. Not a lot of people really talk about, but Dallas Goedert is really good. Dallas Goedert had really awesome advanced stats. He was top 5 in the league in yards per route run, missed tackles forced, yards after catch, and first downs. He had 56 catches for 830 yards and 4 touchdowns. He was the Eagles' most consistent, most reliable, and just best pass catcher last year, I thought. And by the end of the year, when they started to use him more, his production was getting better. He's also a strong blocker, which helps their offense. And he's a really just complete player who's in the absolute peak of his career. So I'm expecting nothing but excellence moving forward from Dallas Goedert. At number 5, I have Kyle Pitts of the Atlanta Falcons. Kyle Pitts, one day, no doubt in my mind, will be the best tight end in football. And he's already starting to get close to it just after one season. He had over 1,000 yards last year at the tight end position, just the second rookie to do so in NFL history, I believe. He was outstanding last season. Outside of the touchdowns department, he was really productive, and I would say is the most athletically gifted tight end in the NFL today. I do think he could use some refinement with his separation, because he could improve a bit on that. But he's so physically gifted and he's so big in general that it's hard for defenses to stop him unless they're committing extra men to him, as he was facing multiple times in multiple games last season. And even as the primary receiving option as a rookie for a sub-average pass offense, Kyle Pitts was really productive, and his trajectory for me is only going up from here. So number 5, I have Kyle Pitts. Darren Waller for me is the number 4 tight ends in the NFL, and right now I think Darren Waller is a more refined Kyle Pitts. I think Waller has 98% of the physical ability Pitts does. I think Waller is just like Pitts, a bit sub-average in blocking, but I think Waller's a little more refined of a route runner right now, and he's done it over multiple years, which I'll give him a little bit of credit for why I have him above Pitts. But Darren Waller, of course, ailments and injuries caused him to have a worse year last year than he did the previous two. Still a really good year, still when he was playing the best option by far in that passing game, and someone that has fully established himself as a top tight end for years to come and for past years, and just overall one of the best tight ends in the league, especially from a route running perspective. At number 3, I have Mark Andrews. I think Mark Andrews was probably the best tight end in football last season, especially from a value perspective. I think what Andrews was able to do was truly almost carry his football team, which is rare for a tight end, but he really did that. He was an elite blocker, as he usually is, but he's also proved he can be the best receiving tight end in football. Tyler Huntley and Lamar Jackson both really relied upon him last season, and he delivered without a ton of other great weapons. He is a very good route runner. He is so strong and so physical, and I think also fairly fast for a tight end at least, that he just carves up teams in the middle of the field, and there's not many answers for him in the red zone. So Mark Andrews is a player that, absolutely you could argue for the best tight end in the league right now. Don't know if he's had quite the level of consistency of the top 2 in terms of being at the very top of the position, but last year was such a good year that yes, you could make that argument that he was the best and is the best tight end in the league. At number 2, I have George Kittle. George Kittle has been, in the past, for me, the number 1 tight end in the league, and he is honestly probably the most complete. He's such a great blocker and receiver. He's so good after the catch. He is improving as a route runner, I feel. He's fast. He's, again, a great blocker. He seems like a great guy off the field. There's not much to dislike about George Kittle. I do think we saw last year him phase out of the offense a bit more for Deebo Samuel, so that is a part of it. And also, I do think the durability concerns push him from being the number 1 for me, but you can make a very strong argument he's the best tight end in the league because he's shown he can be in the past, and he still has the skill set to do so. And at number 1, I have the guy who has probably been the best tight end in the league over cumulatively the last 4 years or so. That has been Travis Kelce. Now, Travis Kelce did not quite have the year last year he did the year before, but I just think that was a result of the Chiefs' offense in general just being a little down last year compared to the previous 3. But Travis Kelce, still the best route runner at the position. Travis Kelce still pretty good after the catch. He's pretty physical. He's gotten better as a blocker, as many people have said. he's still the best in the league, in my opinion. He has been as productive as everyone, if not more, and he's been as available as everyone. I think he does so much for that offense too, so when teams are focusing in on a hill, he's the guy that kills you. And I have no doubt in my mind he'll remain productive even without Tyreek Hill this year. So I think Travis Kelce is the best tight end in the NFL as of today.